this is a bombshell for markets, of course, and it must be for the White House, which at times was seen as not taking COVID-19 quite as seriously as it could have. How do you think voters react to this?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's obviously, the President of the United States, whether you're a big fan of Donald Trump or not, is still the President of the United States, and now he's facing this this potential very serious health challenge. So I think some voters, will be very sympathetic to that. And I have a feeling it's going to kind of put a freeze on the campaign just for a little while, not just because Trump is physically off the trail, but just because, there's sort of it's a very odd moment in American life right now. We still don't know the full implications of this. I mean, Donald Trump's a very busy guy, talked to a lot of people. Amy Coney Barrett, his Supreme Court choice, had met with him not so long ago. The vice president, the chief of staff, a lot of people passed through the Oval Office, and so we're still trying to get our arms around just how many people might have been exposed to Donald Trump and what the implications are for that. But yeah, it feels like right now everything is kind of frozen, and we have to kind of get a little bit more of a handle on what is Trump's health condition, since we really don't know that many details right now.
What is the precedent? Good morning to you, or good evening to you, Craig. What is the precedent for a president being unable to campaign? This has happened in darker, with darker events taking place than this, I suppose, in U.S. history.
Yeah.
Is it the norm that in this situation both sides stop? We haven't heard yet from the Democratic campaign, I don't think.
No, and, there's a bit of an irony here, which is that Joe Biden, the Democratic rival to President Trump for the presidency, of course, has been sort of ultra cautious in his approach to the virus and his campaign's approach to the virus. The Bloomberg news reporters who travel with Joe Biden routinely have to be tested repeatedly to sort of be on his campaign and in the presence of his campaign officials. And so there is a certain irony here that Trump, who was criticized for not taking the virus very seriously, has now, contracted it, while Joe Biden is, again, maybe went even above and beyond, seems to be doing okay. I don't know that Joe Biden will feel the need to sort of stay off the road or kind of unilaterally disarm in that way. I do think for the next 24, 48, 72 hours, the nation will be in a little bit of a state of shock. Nobody much wants to hear from a presidential candidate of either party much right now. You have to remember, Donald Trump, spends a lot of time campaigning on Twitter, too. So, he may still find a way to get his voice heard, but there is absolutely no doubt that, he was hoping. He's behind in the polls right now. Joe Biden has about a 7-point lead nationally. He's held that lead for several months now. Obviously, Trump needed to get back out on the trail, do some rallies, try to get his base stirred up for him again. That is all off the table. So it's hard not to see this as anything but, helpful to Joe Biden's chances of potentially winning this election. But as I say, I think for the next foreseeable future, no one's going to be talking too much about that as we try to assess the president's health.
Craig, except for the fact that, Jair Bolsonaro and Boris Johnson, two men, two world leaders who also didn't take the coronavirus threat as seriously as maybe they could have, and then contracted COVID-19, and then each saw higher approval ratings. Can't you take from that the fact that Donald Trump will at least get a fair amount of sympathy from voters?
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump is a highly polarizing figure. So there are people who love him and people who hate him. Let's just be really upfront about that. There is a phenomenon in American politics. We sort of call it in my world as sort of the rally around the flag. Obviously, people may remember during the Gulf War, George H.W. Bush's approval rating was about 92%, unheard of. After 9/11, George W. Bush, his son, his approval rating spiked. So there is, whatever you might think about Donald Trump politically, there is a certain amount of he is the leader of the country. There may be some rallying around him. I have to say I'm not necessarily seeing that. I mean, it's hard to overstate how polarizing he is. The people, like I say, the people who love him, and the people who hate him kind of hate him. And obviously anyone can have just human sympathy for a person catching this incredibly dangerous disease. Donald Trump's not a young man. He's not a particularly healthy man. We don't know where this all leads. So, again, I think there's just a moment here when politics maybe put a little bit on hold, but I guess standing here tonight, I would be a little surprised if there was a big sympathy factor for Donald Trump. He's not a terribly sympathetic figure. He's a very combative guy in the way he carries out his presidency and his politics. So, a lot we have to wait and see. But I do think the country right now will be trying to figure out, hey, how serious is this? Obviously, as you said, those two leaders got it, came out through the other side. Obviously, 200,000 people have died from this. So, here. So it's a very, very serious moment right now. The White House position is saying they're doing fine, they're doing well. Certainly people can come through this much more easily. I just think it's too early to tell that stuff until we know more about his medical condition. But I don't think it's going to fundamentally change the politics underlying the election, which right now is tilting a little bit in Joe Biden's favor.